Welcome to the Guide, Not Guru podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Brock. My purpose is to empower women to create authentic, aligned, and abundant lives. After over a decade of mentoring women in business and self-leadership, I found that we don't need to adopt a guru's blueprint. We need guides to help us build our own. So if you're ready to lead and be a work in progress, you've come to the right place. Hey friends. All right. Today I want to talk about 5 choices that you can make to step into a more inspired life in 2023. So for me, I believe that inspiration is all around us, but we really have to be open to receive it. And there are environments and thoughts and emotions that we're in on a daily basis that keep us in the same predictable life that we've been living. And so if you're thinking about, at this time of year, okay, my New Year's resolutions and, what am I just finishing? What am I wanting to begin? Who am I wanting to become? I wanted to give you a couple of recommendations that I have done that has helped me open up to a more inspired life. So hopefully you can find that in yourself too. And so you want to be able to put things in your life that keep you consistently inspired. So the first thing is I actually want you to break your routine. Okay, so we're just going to dive right in. All right. So I'm someone who loves to have a flow, and I really do believe that the only way that we create, our life is through small and consistent action. And so there is this routine and habits and things that we need to do, but we're not talking about, routines and habits here right now. What we're talking about is finding inspiration. And a lot of times we're in our own little world and we need something to spark new, inspired creativity in us. And it's not going to come from the same daily habits you've been having. So if you're someone who has the exact same morning routine, or if you have the exact same week or food or, life priorities, and it's always happening the exact same way, that's one way to make something real in you, but it's not the way to make something new and inspired in you. So I actually want you to break your routine and change your physical environment. One of the reasons that I love to travel is because it's so fascinating when you find yourself in a new community, in a new place, in a new country, in a new world, in a new environment. All of a sudden it wakes you up. You're like, oh wait, the way that I've always been is not the way that it has to be. You start to see that other people are living differently. And so by changing your physical location, it really helps you. So I want you to imagine this. Every single day you are waking up with a fresh start. But within moments of you waking up, here's what happens. You actually have this emotional memory of who you are. And it comes into your consciousness. You wake up and you're like, and then you remember and you're like, you exhale and you're like, oh yeah, those same problems, those same people, the same mess, you re-remember who you've been. And what happens is we actually end up having this emotional addiction, and we cannot even help it. Our body has memorized this version of ourselves that we've been. And so we go right back into playing the same role. And, we have these moments of consciousness where we're like, I'm going to change my life and I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to quit smoking and I'm going to really be patient this year. And I'm really going to be about these finances, right? We have these moments of good intentions. But what happens is we end up waking up in the same bed with the same people, with the same problems. And what we need is to break that. So here's what's really cool is when you are in a new environment, you are in the unpredictable. You are in the unknown. And when you wake up and you are in your same home, your same routine with the same people in the same places, it is very easy for your subconscious to take over. Like if I was to ask you how you brush your teeth, you'd be like, I just do it. But the first time you did it, it was like, how do I use this thing? And I put it in my mouth, like think about driving a car. The first time you're like, okay, 10 and 2, and I have to push the brake. At the time that I'm pulling this thing back to go into reverse, is that how this thing works, right? The first time you're doing something, all of your consciousness has to come into your body. And now that you know how to do something, your body leads you before you even know you're there. Now, why is this a problem? Because when we try to change our lives in the same emotional environment that we're constantly in, we are overtaken by the practice versions of ourselves. So let me give you an example of this. This is why changing your environment is so important. And this can be on small scale and this can be on big scale. So I remember a couple of months ago, I was feeling like for a couple of weeks, I was in this emotional waking state of feeling overwhelmed and a little bit anxious. It was like we were just dealing with some things in our world. And every single day I would wake up and I would feel again like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's like you remember the problems that you're in. So what I did was one morning I decided I'm changing everything. I'm not going to do any of my routines. I know this to be true that when you change your environment, you change your state of being. And so I got up, and instead of going to do my coffee and my quiet time like I always do, and then I move my body and then I shower, I immediately got up and got in the shower. I never do that, y'all. Then instead of getting my cup of coffee, I went to a coffee shop. And it was there that I decided to journal or to do my morning routine. And even the state of being in different clothes and a different routine and makeup on and all these things, my body did not know what to do with itself because it's not used to this version of me. It's like, we don't usually have coffee here and we don't usually see this view. But when we are actually in different emotional states or physical states, we actually open ourselves up to different possibilities. And so setting aside time before the year end to have a completely reordered day, if you can. Now I'm talking luxury here. For some of you might be like, that's cute, Kelly. I'd love to do that, but I can't. Can you grab a couple hours? Because, and especially if you can do this in the morning, you will stop the habitual you that has been. And you will find yourself in a new routine. And, you guys might not know this, but I used to teach behavior change. So when I was in grad school, I was studying behavior change. And I taught, this is such a flashback. I taught smoking cessation classes, like literally teaching people how to stop smoking. And what I taught them was at the exact same time that you are stopping smoking is the best time for you to change a whole bunch of other habits too. Because you are so reordering your world. It's like you could twist up a couple different things at the same time because your body doesn't know what to do with anything. And so it's open to change. And so the same is true with you. So if you can grab a couple of hours, if you can grab a day, if you can take time away, when you are in a new physical or emotional state, you have access to new possibilities. So I want you to actually break the pattern. Now, this is something I know about myself that I actually know about every 90 days. I desire to get away. Like this actually naturally happens for you all. I guarantee when you feel like I just, I know I need to get clear or I know I want new inspiration, you're probably saying like, I just need to get away. I just need a break. You actually know, your body knows it wants to get to a new space so that it can see, think, feel something new. And it is actually physiologically true. When you put yourself in a new emotional or physical place, you are stopping the repeated habitual you and you have access to new possibilities. So I know this about myself, about every 90 days, whether I've planned it or not. Usually I do try to set aside some time or I'm kind of looking in the future, but if not, there's a bug that happens in me and I'm like, I need a minute. I need a day off. I need to get away. I need to travel. And it is so inspiring for me to get to travel. So even if you're taking a day trip to a coffee shop that's an hour away and you're in that environment, or you are taking time to travel. It's important. Now, speaking of shifting your environment, I'm going to take you to choice number 2. And again, it's something you're probably naturally going to do at this time of year, but there's a reason why it's important. So one of the things that happens when it's the end of the year and we take down our Christmas trees and we, get ready for the new year. I don't know about you, but I feel like $1,000,000 when I start to put my Christmas tree and all that stuff away. Because when you actually start to change the physical environment of your home, you are releasing energy. Y'all know energy is real. And energy is in everything. And so before the year end, set aside time to start to declutter and or change your environmental state of your home. So move your office around, get a new chair, buy a new lamp, clean out your closet, change the physicality of your home because there's energy in everything. Feng Shui is a whole philosophy on bringing, energy purposefully and intentionally into your home. And so when you are sitting in your same office with the same stack of bills, with the same pile, with the same books, with the same view, you cannot think creatively. You can't. You are surrounded by old energy, by a world that was created by the old version of you. And so it's crucial that you actually start to change your physical space. I'm telling you, even just turning your desk, getting a new carpet, any of these things that you can do will start to change your emotional state, will start to free up physical energy, and you will start to feel more inspired. You will start to see new possibilities. Okay. Choice number 3 that I'm going to invite you to take before the new year is to spend more time alone with yourself. And I'm such an advocate for being alone with yourself. And here's why. We live in a world of overconsuming. We are constantly positioning ourselves to go, I want something new. Where can I find it? And we start looking outside of ourselves for answers to things that can only come from our internal world. I cannot tell you how to live a better life that you're living. Only you can know that. That's why it's called Guide, Not Guru. I can guide you, I can give you tips, but it's only going to be in the moments that you meet yourself that you find the answers. And so the greatest practice you can make now and in the new year is time alone with yourself. I actually want to challenge you. When was the last time that you took a walk, washed the dishes, rode in your car without listening to something? We cannot even be alone with ourselves. And I'm going to challenge you to be alone because it is in there. It is in that space that you will start to find inspired ideas, real thoughts, revelations. Why do people say I have inspired ideas in the shower? It's because they have to be alone with themselves. When you're alone with yourself, you give yourself the opportunity to hear that wisdom that's inside. So when you're alone with yourself, you can actually open yourself up to asking more powerful questions. And I'm going to give you just a few powerful questions that you can ask yourself when you're alone. Okay? So the first question is, what makes me come alive? Go sit by yourself, get a gorgeous cup of coffee, get in that new environment, be alone with yourself. You're not listening to a book or to a podcast or to anybody else, and you answer that question. What makes me come alive? Another great question is, if I was to live the most inspired life, what would that look like? What would that feel like? And just start to answer and see what comes through. Another great question is, if I had 6 months left to live, what would change? How would I live my life? There's something so profound around tapping into our mortality and sitting with our eulogies and thinking about the purpose of our life. And, I don't know, people get all jacked up about New Year's, and they're like, oh, New Year's resolutions, and no one makes it. And I'm like, gosh, embrace this. Embrace this season. This is actually happening collectively, that people come to a place of reflection. Like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, it's a beautiful time. Let's all sit back, reflect on this last year, see what gets to move forward with us, see what gets to sit back, what gets to be released, and then how do I consciously want to live? And I will tell you, one thing I'm feeling inspired to create in the new year is some sort of higher self program. One of the things that I call upon often is my higher self, this vision of the future of me and the allies and the team that I have that helps me to make choices at any moment, at any time, all year round, to make the best decisions for the life that I'm designing, that I'm wanting to live out. So be on the lookout for that. You know, it's still in the inspiration phase, hasn't landed yet, but it's inspiration. Okay. So I want you to spend some time. And you know what's cool about also spending time alone with yourself and even journaling is you start to reflect. And for me, my journals are so precious because, and I don't journal books every single day. Some days it is just like chicken scratch and this is what I thought. And other times I'm proactively really writing these entries. But here's why the journaling is so important. When I look back at my journals, I see a silver lining. I see, oh my gosh, I've always been about this work. Oh, I've always had a desire for this thing. If you're someone who feels like, I don't even know what I would want to do, I don't know what makes me come alive, start to journal or reflect on daily. What makes me lean in? Where do I light up? And when you start to see that, you start to see these are the things that make me come alive. Listen, inspiration is about creativity. It's about something that inspired to me means life. It's aliveness. It's new. It's creativity. And I really do believe that inspiration is all around us. And I've mentioned before this book, Big Magic. And inspiration, there are things that want to come to life on this planet and is looking for the perfect host. And when you say, I'm open, when you literally open yourself up to say, you know, what wants to come through my life for the service of me or for other people? And you start to ask these more powerful questions and you open up consistently to hear and feel and sense what that is. You are becoming a host to inspiration and to magic. And you'll start to find the things that make you come alive. And this does not come in one sitting. I tell people, your quiet time, your meditation, your whatever you call that practice, your peace practices, this is not a drive-by experience. This is a daily receiving. This is a daily practice. This is a daily fulfilling. So it's one of my highest practices is time alone with myself. You will find out you have a lot to say. You have a lot going on inside. And so get quiet, stop listening to stuff every single day. We are so bombarded with consumption mindset that it's hard to hear yourself think. It's hard to feel what you need to feel. It's hard to know the knowing that's inside of you when you are so consumed. So get freaking alone. Okay, I made my point. The next one is getting out in nature. And I remember when I started really this mindfulness and, self-awareness practice, and people would be like, out in nature. And I was like, okay, nature. Yeah, like it's beautiful. I get it. No, the trees and the flowers and everything's really lovely. And I didn't get it. And I will tell you some of the most profound things that I know to be true now sounded like freaking cliches in the beginning. I mean, they just did. I was just like, okay, just silly little sayings. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why these people are gurus. It's just truth that transcends. And we can learn so much from nature. I mean, if you even think about a flower, there is so much you can learn about the human experience by watching nature. What is happening in nature is happening in our lives too. I mean, think about a seed, and it starts as a bud, right? Or it like starts as a seed, and the shell has to crack open, and it's in the dark, and it's under the surface, and yet there's this intelligence that is supporting the seed to become a flower, and that flower blooms, and it gives life to new things. Like, there are so many things we can learn about nature. I watch my kids, and we constantly have mindfulness practices. So I'll be walking with my kids, and I call them little noticers. And I'm like watching them. They're like, "Oh my gosh, mommy, look at the sky." And I'm like, "You're such a good noticer, Ev." Or like, Rainer's like, "Do you hear that?" You know, when we're in nature, there's so much awe. If you sit and watch a sunset, a lot of my branding colors are sunrise and sunset colors because there's nothing that makes me feel more connected to God, life, love, myself, than watching a sunrise or a sunset. I am in awe of them. I constantly, actually today, almost made my daughter late for school because we live near a lake, and there was steam coming off of the lake, and the sun was shining through the steam, and it was just like so epic. And I like pulled over in a driveway, and she was like, "Mommy, I'm going to be late." And I was like, "I know, but I really want to get a picture of this." She was like, "You can't just run in someone's yard." And I was like, "Maybe I can really quickly." But when we start to really witness nature, we realize there is life and beauty and creation and inspiration and innovation and lessons and wisdom. I mean, I may sound like so woo. Like, I remember hearing people say these things in the beginning, and I was just like, okay. But it's real. And I'm giving you some of the best tips that I have that have helped me fundamentally change my life to live a very inspired life. And nature is one of them. I take a walk every single day. And if I can't walk, I plant my feet in the grass. And I learned this, a grounding practice, to literally put your feet in the grass. And I remember starting to do this, I think it was February. And I remember it being like really cold outside where I live in North Carolina. And I was like, am I really going to do this? Put my feet like in the ground. And there's so much you can feel and so much safety you can get in your body. And there's so many nutrients from being in the sun. And all of these things are real whether you understand them or not. And so the more that you are present in nature, again, not necessarily taking a walk and listening to a podcast. It's like really be present with nature. Sit and listen. There's so much you can receive in nature. So I highly recommend it. It's official. I've become woo. And I love it. Okay. Okay. This is the next one I want to give you. It's the next and last. But I think it's really, really a big one. One of the greatest things you can do is to get around new and inspired people. Okay? So I want you to think about just even your social media feed. There's an algorithm that is showing you more of what you like, more of who you are, more of your already, clear interests. Oh, she's into these kinds of shopping things. She's into these kinds of people. She likes these kind of books. She follows these kinds of accounts. We're going to show her more of the same. And so what happens is you end up having a world that just starts to close in on you. And most people end up hanging out with the same exact people in their physical circles and now in our social circles online. And when you hang out with the same people, you end up thinking like those people. You end up talking like those people. You end up acting like those people. And you end up in a bubble. And what happens is that bubble blocks you. And what you've got to do is to break the boundaries of that bubble so that you can see a new way of life. And so, getting around people who challenge your way of thinking and inspire you to see the world differently will create so much life and inspiration in you. So I want to tell you how this kind of came to me. So I had been in a network marketing company for 10 years, and we called it, literally, we all called it. We all said, we're in a pink bubble. We said, we're in a bubble. And what that meant was we're all drinking the same Kool-Aid, and we're all talking about the same things. We're all thinking the same things, and we all live in this little world. And that meant there was no new innovation. There was no new thoughts. There was no new creativity. You had to go outside of the bubble. You have to break the barriers to see something new. And I remember I started to hang out with other people who were not in my network marketing world. And I started to I remember investing in a retreat. And I started to be around other entrepreneurs who were not in network marketing. And I was like, oh, wow, they're all like making money doing this other way of thing that's not network marketing. And at first I was like uncomfortable because I was like, I don't want to see anything else. I really like what I'm doing. I literally had a hard time like reconciling with like being with other people because I was like, I don't want to see anything else. And then it was like, why don't I want to see anything else? It was crazy. But I loved being around these other people. And so I started to spend more time. I started to invest in retreats. I started to invest in coaches who were in different industries. I started to subscribe actually to people who were outside of my field to their newsletters and like watch their marketing and see the way that they did things. Like there's something about getting outside of your realm that will inspire you to see a new thing. And it has continued to grow. I remember investing in one of my first marketing coaches. You know, my first marketing coach was a guy, and I had been around women and female like thinking for forever, and he had this very masculine approach to marketing, and he was just so cool. His name's Wes, and he just like saw the world different, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never thought of business or life in this way. And I remember investing in my second marketing coach. And I remember one of our first calls, she was like, so I was listening to the trees this weekend. And I was like, what? She's listening to the trees? But she saw the world different. And when I was in her program, I was around all these people who were so different than me. Like they were political activists and they were women who were writing books and they were like already had podcasts and they had all of these different ways of seeing the world. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was constantly uncomfortable because they were not like me. They were not like me. But what was so cool is I became so much more open to the way that other people saw. But what happens is the inspiration in other people inspires that part of you that already exists to come alive. I see a lot of women get really jealous of other people. And what I want you to shift in your thinking is that what you want or desire or see or admire in that other person is just something that you recognize in yourself. And when you spend time with that person, you get to choose to make that thing come alive in you. You know, when I spent time with this mentor, Abby, she was such a challenger, and she really was an activist, and she really pushed me out of my like vanilla-ness. But because I was with her, that part in me that is also strong and an activist and speaks her truth came alive. And so I have spent time now with healers and with people of all sorts of belief systems and way of life and artists. And, I was sharing this actually today. Like I remember being with this one friend of mine who's like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I do art, and she puts paint on her body and she like uses her body to like make art. And I was like, that's so incredible that that's the way that she lives her life and expresses her life in this world. So my point is, when you get around other people, it will inspire something new in you. And if you're seeing the same people over and over, you are just you're reconfirming a world that you've already existed in. And I'm pretty sure if you're listening to this podcast, you're wanting to inspire a new world for yourself. You're wanting to inspire a new life in you. And so, When I think about even investing in like the coaches and mentors, I'm always investing in the thing that I'm ready to make real in my life. So I heavily invested in marketing when I was like, I'm ready to make that part of me real in my life. I invested, in speaking and learning communication. I remember investing in healing and understanding energy. I invested in finance. I want to make that thing real in my life. So, get inspired and get around other people. And now I'm going to challenge you this. I didn't say that correctly. I'm going to challenge you with this. I encourage you before the new year to start to mute or unfollow people that are constantly reconfirming the world that you live in. Follow like things that are totally outside of your realm. I remember I started to follow like NASA, and I started to follow Earth, and I started to follow like these like global activists, and I started to follow, like conscious leaders, and then I started to follow like art accounts. Like I have this one art account. Actually, you can see the art behind me. It's like the custom piece of art that I got done by Cosmic Creative. She's so amazing. I started following her because I was fascinated by watching her videos of her doing her acrylic art. And I was like, one day I'm going to have that piece of art. And here it is behind me. It's like it's the most money I've ever paid for a piece of art. And I love it so much, but it has made creativity come alive in me. So I'm challenging you to unfollow all the things that you think exist. And here's another point to make on this. I'm a content creator. I'm a, entrepreneur online. And a lot of times, if you're someone who's also that same thing, we end up seeing a lot of our similarities on our feed, and we think we don't have originality. And we're like, I don't know, I'm not saying anything new. I keep seeing it outside of me. I spent time with some of my best friends a couple weekends ago, and I don't know what's on their feed. But I know when I was talking about the things that make me come alive, that feel very familiar and normal, and it's like, this is kind of what my feed looks like, and these are the people I spend time with, and it's not anything new. I was telling them about human design and books I'm reading and ways that I'm seeing the world differently, and they were like, this is so good, Kelly. Like they were lighting up like it was new information to them, and I realized like they're not all seeing the same thing I'm seeing. And so I encourage you to unfollow or mute some of the accounts that are like you. Follow magazines, follow artists, follow inspired people, follow people who are passionate, follow people that challenge you, because new, bigger perspectives and possibilities will exist only out there. It's never going to be in the same thinking. Right? What's that saying? It's like, the same thinking that got you here isn't going to be the thinking that gets you out of here. You've got to get around people who see the world differently. And when someone sees the world differently, they think different. They feel different. They speak different. They act different. They will inspire something new in you. So I hope that these have landed for you. I hope that some of them inspire you to make real in your life. I hope all of them do, because honestly, when I look back, I'm like, some of the best decisions I made was to do these things in my life. And this is the perfect time of year and season to start opening up to new possibilities and to get slow and to get clear and to clear the space and to change your routine and to get out in nature and to shed your feed and to open up to inspiration and to the world that you want to see. So, cheers to an inspired life in 2023. Hey friend, thank you for listening. My goal is to empower as many women as possible. If this episode supported you in any way, I would love it if you'd leave me a review or let me know on Instagram. You can take a screenshot or tag me or just shoot me a DM. If you're looking for any kind of additional support, don't hesitate to reach out. See you here next Tuesday.